Okay, so now we are going to look at our grammar lesson. So open your books to page 124, and you will see that we are going to learn about conditionals again. But this time, we are going to focus on future real and future unreal conditionals. If you remember from our previous unit, let me see if this works. Yeah. So this is from Unit 9. We talked about present unreal conditionals, and then in Lesson F, we talked about present unreal conditionals. So present real and present unreal conditionals. Now this time we are looking at future real and unreal conditionals. So, I'm going to go ahead and play the grammar lesson so you can watch it, and we will discuss afterwards.
Conditionals. Unit 10, Lesson B. Future real and future unreal. Watch and listen. Use the future real conditional to talk about a result that will likely happen if a certain condition is true. Use the future unreal conditional to talk about a future result that is unlikely to happen because the condition is not true or possible at this time. Future real, possible.
If I go to the wedding, I will wear my new shoes.
Future unreal, not possible.
If I went to the wedding, I would wear my new shoes, but I'm not going.
Future real, possible.
If Jane isn't working on Saturday, she will go to the wedding.
Future unreal, not possible.
If Jane weren't working on Saturday, she would go to the wedding, but Jane will be working on Saturday.
Future real, possible.
If we see your cousin at the wedding, we will say hello.
Future unreal, not possible.
If we saw your cousin at the wedding, we would say hello, but your cousin isn't going to be at the wedding.
Future real, possible.
If it isn't raining, they will have the reception in the garden.
Future unreal, not possible.
If it weren't raining, they would have the reception in the garden. But it's raining.
Check your understanding. Look at the picture and the headings. Read the two sentences. Complete the future real sentence using the correct form of the verbs in parentheses. Now complete the future unreal sentence using the correct form of the verbs in parentheses. Listen to the sentences.
If I go to the wedding, I will wear my new shoes.
If I went to the wedding, I would wear my new shoes, but I'm not going.
If Jane isn't working on Saturday, she will go to the wedding.
If Jane weren't working on Saturday, she would go to the wedding, but Jane will be working on Saturday.
If we see your cousin at the wedding, we will say hello.
If we saw your cousin at the wedding, we would say hello, but your cousin isn't going to be at the wedding.
If it isn't raining, they will have the reception in the garden.
If it weren't raining, they would have the reception in the garden. But it's raining.
Let's review. Future real, possible. Future unreal, not possible.
If I go to the wedding, I will wear my new shoes.
If I went to the wedding, I would wear my new shoes, but I'm not going.
If Jane isn't working on Saturday, she will go to the wedding.
If Jane weren't working on Saturday, she would go to the wedding. But Jane will be working on Saturday.
Okay, so now let me make a comment. If you noticed, you'll see that the future unreal and the present unreal use the same form, okay, the same structure. So in the if clause, we use past tense. If I went to the wedding, and same thing with present unreal. We also use past tense in the if clause. So let me go back to that. Okay. So here you can see, right here. If she used energy efficient light bulbs, if everybody drove smaller cars, okay. And then if you look at the present unreal in the main clause, it says we would use less gasoline. So it uses the would modal, and it's the same situation for the future unreal in the main clause. I would wear my new shoes. So if I went to the wedding, I would wear my new shoes. Okay, so you might be wondering, then what's the difference between present unreal and future unreal? Okay, so when we use the present unreal conditional, we are generally talking about imaginary situations or highly unlikely situations. So for example, if I were an animal, I would be a bird. So it's totally impossible to be an animal. It's totally imaginary. Now, if you look at the future unreal conditional, you can see that it's a possibility, but because of like something related to your schedule or some other kind of obstacle, it's not possible to do something that would otherwise be completely realistic and possible. So if you look at the example, it says, if I went to the wedding, I would wear my new shoes, but I'm not going. Maybe because I have a different event, just like Tan had his nephew's graduation party to go to. So that's a totally realistic possibility. However, it won't happen because of some kind of obstacle. Okay, so if you look at the second example, it says, if Jane weren't working on Saturday, she would go to the wedding. Okay, but if you look at the parentheses, it says, but Jane will be working on Saturday, so she can't go to the wedding. Okay, and again, you can see in the useful language box something we talked about last time, but the future unreal conditional form of the verb be is were, just like the present unreal conditional form of be is also were. Okay, so we don't say if Jane wasn't working for the unreal conditional. We use weren't working, even though Jane is third person singular. Okay, so that's a lot of information. But let's go ahead and take a look at the practice exercise. So let me make this into one page again and zoom in. Okay, so as always, complete the sentences and use the future real or future unreal conditional. Okay, so you can pause the video and continue when you are finished. Okay, so let me go ahead and play the answers, and you can check your answers.
Page 124. Exercise 2A.
1. The Patels are from India, but they live in the United States now. They are planning a wedding for their daughter, Parveen. If they lived in India, the groom's family would pay for the wedding. 2. The wedding will be in the United States. If the Patels had the wedding in India, the wedding celebration would last 3 days. Here, it will last for 1 day.
3.
The Patels don't have a lot of money. If they were rich, they would invite 300 people. Instead, they will invite about 150.
Okay, so let me stop the audio here real quick. So numbers 1, 2, and 3 are all future unreal conditionals. Okay, so you can see also that the if clauses are past tense. If they lived in India, and they don't live in India, so that's why it's not possible. If they lived in India, the groom's family would pay for the wedding. And then here, if the Patels had the wedding in India, so same thing, they are not in India, so this is unreal. And then you would say the wedding celebration would last 3 days. Okay, and then number 3, if they were rich, but they're not. Okay, so they would invite 300 people. Okay, now let's keep going.
4.
The Patels are planning to have music for the reception. If a band doesn't charge too much, they will have live music.
Okay, and this is future real conditional. So the band might charge a lot or they might not charge a lot. Okay, so it's a realistic situation. Alright, so let's keep going.
5.
It's possible that the weather will be nice on the day of the wedding. If the weather is nice, they will have the ceremony outside.
So also future real.
6.
It's possible Parveen and her husband will get some vacation time from work. If Parveen and her husband get enough time off from work, they will take a trip to Hawaii for their honeymoon.
Okay, also future real.
7.
They don't have a lot of time off from work. If they had more time, they would go to India for their honeymoon.
Okay, future unreal.
8.
Parveen and her new husband will live in their own apartment. If they were in India, they would live with the groom's parents.
Okay, and also future unreal. Okay. So now we are going to move on to the next page. Okay. Actually, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so let's look at exercise B. Let's make sentences about Victor's real and unreal plans for New Year's Eve. Okay, so if we look at the first category, we can see stay home, have a party with his friends. And then future unreal, travel to Florida, spend New Year's Eve near the beach. So let's look at the real, a future real conditional. If Victor stays home on New Year's Eve, he will have a party with his friends. Okay, so this is the realistic possibility. So we use present tense in the if clause and future tense in the main clause. Okay? And then let's look at the unreal conditional. But if he traveled to Florida, he would spend New Year's Eve near the beach. Okay, so he won't travel to Florida. Maybe he's unable to take time off, or maybe he doesn't have a car, or it's too expensive to travel to Florida. Maybe the plane tickets are sold out. So anyway, for whatever reason, he can't travel to Florida, or he won't travel to Florida. So it is not a possibility. So past tense in the if clause, and in the main clause we use would. He would spend New Year's Eve near the beach. Okay, so take some time to make sentences with each of these phrases, and of course using the future real conditional and the future unreal conditional. Okay, so pause the video and continue when you're finished. Okay, so for the second category, we could say, if Victor has a party at his house, he will cook for his friends. Okay, so remember, Victor is third person singular, and we need to use present tense. So if Victor has a party at his house, he will cook for his friends. Okay, but now let's look at the future unreal. But if he had a lot of money, he would take his friends to a nice restaurant in Florida. Okay? If he had a lot of money, he would take his friends to a nice restaurant in Florida. Okay, and then the next one. If he goes to his parents' house, he will have a quiet celebration with family, or you can say with his family. Okay, so if he goes to his parents' house, he will have a quiet celebration with his family. But if he were in Mexico, he would eat 12 grapes at midnight. I guess 12 symbolizes 12 midnight, 12 o'clock midnight. Okay, so if he were in Mexico, he would eat 12 grapes at midnight. Okay, and then if he travels to New York, he will celebrate New Year's Eve in Times Square. And that's a very popular way to spend New Year's Eve. Okay, and then we can say, but if he traveled to Brazil, he would watch fireworks on the beach at midnight. Okay, if he traveled to Brazil, he would watch fireworks on the beach at midnight. And then the next one, future real. If he goes to a club, he will dance all night. Okay, but if he were in France, he would have a special dinner. If he were in France, he would have a special dinner. Okay, so now I want you to make your own sentences based on your real and unreal plans for some future holidays or special events. So you can also use New Year's Eve as an example, but that's pretty far away since it's only June. Even though this year is going by so fast, and New Year's Eve will probably be here before we know it. But you can also use your birthday or someone else's birthday, or of course you can make your own ideas like graduation, although graduation just passed for most people. So future might be difficult to use for a graduation. And of course, you don't have to use like a special day, but you could use a special event. For example, many of you are familiar with the Peachtree Road Race, which is a very popular 10K race. Actually, it's the world's most popular 10K race, and it's always held on the 4th of July. But because of the coronavirus, this is the first year that it was rescheduled. So actually, they are planning to do the Peachtree Road Race on Thanksgiving Day. So it's the first time in the 51 years, I think 51 years of the Peachtree Road Race, that the date has changed to a totally different date. In fact, I think it's going to be winter or late fall rather than summer. But you can talk about some kind of, event like that instead of just a special holiday or a special day. So anyway, go ahead and do this activity. And if you need help, you can look at these examples. So if you stay home on New Year's Eve, how will you celebrate? And if you're working alone, then you don't have to ask this question, of course. And you can just say, if I stay home, I'll invite my friends to come over and celebrate with me. Oops, there's a mistake here. This I should be capitalized. Okay. And then here, you could also say, but if I were in my native country, I would watch fireworks at midnight. So if it is unlikely that you'll be in your native country, you shouldn't use this because this is for an unreal situation. But for many of you, you actually travel to your country during Christmas and New Year's anyway, so you might want to use you might want to use this for your future real conditional. Okay, So you could say, if I go to my native country, I will watch fireworks at midnight. Okay? Or you could say, if I were to stay here, okay? Or you could say, if I stayed here in the United States, I would celebrate with my family, or celebrate with my family and friends. Okay, so anyway, go ahead and pause the video and continue when you're finished. Okay, so if we use the birthday idea, we might say, if I stay home on my birthday, I will celebrate with my family and close friends, especially because with the coronavirus, we can't really celebrate with large groups of people. And you can use the coronavirus situation for unreal. You could say, but if there were a vaccine for the coronavirus, I would go out with all my friends. Okay? If there were a vaccine, or you could say, if a vaccine were ready, then I would go out with all my friends. Now, you might have heard of if-then clauses. So sometimes in conditionals, we use if and then, but you don't have to use then. It's optional. So again, if a vaccine were ready for the coronavirus, I would go out with all my friends for my birthday. And then, as I mentioned earlier, about the example of the Peachtree Road Race, I might say, if the Peachtree Road Race is held on Thanksgiving as planned, I will run it. If the Peachtree Road Race is held as planned on Thanksgiving, then I will run it. And I really do hope to run it. It's a great Atlanta tradition, and 60,000 people take part in the race. But of course, this year, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure because of the change of schedule, I'm sure many people won't be able to run the race this year. People come from all over the world. So if you like running, I recommend running the Peachtree Road Race. But then again, the season will be very different if they are able to hold the race as scheduled on Thanksgiving. But anything can happen depending on the coronavirus situation. And then the unreal sentence, I could say, if my husband ran the Peachtree Road Race with me, I would be very happy. My husband hates running, so he is very unlikely to run the Peachtree Road Race, which is why I could use the unreal conditional. So if my husband ran the Peachtree Road Race with me, I would be very happy. But he won't, so I won't be happy. Just kidding. I'll be okay. Anyway, so this is the end of our lesson, and I will see you for lessons C and D next time.